Welcome to the Golden Com Podcast. Today's special guest, Ken Vitto. Ken Vitto, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jason.
This is going to be a great podcast because it's going to be a technical podcast, which is really fun. I think the audience will like it. Ken, you have been in SEO for 3 decades?
I never thought of it
So you're an SEO expert. And so one of the things I have in front of me for this podcast is, do you mind if I take notes?
Of course, go ahead.
Because when I talk to you, I take notes.
Well, you're visionary as well, so I listen to you.
I take notes, Ken. I'm going to value what comes out of this.
Thank you.
And I'm not even sure what's going to come out of this, but I know I'm going to value it.
Well, what's going to come out is some fun and hopefully some good information for your listeners.
Some good information.
Yeah.
All right. Search engine optimization, SEO. But before we get into that, I always like to talk about kind of early starts. Maybe a little bit about the beginning of you and the internet when you guys intersected. Can you tell us a little story about how you got started in this?
Yeah. What happened is my dad was having problems with his company because it was small and trying to have the time to find new clients. But when you get clients, then that means work. So when you're busy working, you're not looking for new clients, right? So you end up with this roller coaster, right? Small companies get that way until they can grow to have enough staff. So around this time, there was this thing called the internet and this thing called e-commerce, and the .com era was going.
So is this 95?
Yeah,
yeah.
It was right in that 95, 90 somethings.
Okay.
Yeah. So I learned about it, and I told my dad, there's this thing called the internet. My dad never used a computer. So the thing called the internet, and they say that you just build a website and you can make a lot of money. And I said, I will learn that. I'll buy the equipment, I'll make you a website, and we'll get you some business. So I even took the photography, built the website, bought a whole new Apple desktop, everything. So it'd be quick. And I built him a website, and nothing happened. And I'm like, oh, the .com people forgot you got to bring traffic to your website. They didn't mention that.
Oh, the good kind.
Any traffic.
Yeah. People need to know
right?
you're there. Yeah.
So I said, Dad, I promised you, website generates some revenue, so I'm going to learn how to drive traffic to your website. So I went on the journey of finding that out. And of course, at that time, there were podcasts. And I was driving such a long distance to work. I had lots of time in the car to listen to podcasts. So I was listening to Rand Fishkin, Danny Sullivan, Bruce Clay, when they were young kids and they were pioneers. And I learned from them. And I incorporated that in my dad's website. And let's just say he never had to hire another salesperson, and his business spiked like crazy.
This is true. Now, today's SEO conversation, I just want to, maybe set the stage. This is before Google, your story, because Google is not the predominant search engine.
In fact, I say I started BG before Google. That's funny that you mentioned that.
So that's the AltaVista, Yahoo, Ask Jeeves,
Netscape, all those guys.
All those things, right? Oh, and AOL had its own.
Yeah,
engine.
And Yahoo was just a directory.
Yeah, the Yahoo, Jerry's Guide to the World Wide Web. I think it was called that, right?
Yeah.
But then, of course, Google shows up. And then this, I like to tell people with the invention of relevance was kind of this concept of relevance was really what escalated Google and basically overtook Yahoo, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what this relevance, still relevant? What would relevance mean in sense of search?
Well, to me, Google basically became a relational database, right, of URLs. So now it had context, right? It well, of course, back then you could put white text on a white background and trick it, but we're talking about what it eventually evolved to, right? It actually starts understanding relationships. Really, that's what it is. I mean, and that's ultimately what you're trying to convey to Google with your website, right? You want to make it as easy as possible for it to understand the relationships of the words on your pages, on your website.
Right. So a lot of people in SEO and a lot of people in marketing or just in charge of sales, they are trying to get their arms around AI. And AI, which you and I talked before the session, we've been using AI for decades. The variations of what we're calling AI. But today's AI is clearly a new category of AI with the GUI, the graphic user interface, and the access to this an artificial intelligence. Strange name for it. But so I guess I'll just ask the question, is AI the end of the line for an SEO expert?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. It is.
I was hoping you were going to say that since we're having an SEO discussion.
It's ultimately going to be our friend. It's going to be a tool that will allow us to more rapidly do our job. It's still new. Just to go backwards, I heard about the internet at the beginning of it, and they showed me this command line interface that you had to use back then, and they had these commands called finger and all these things, very cryptic. I actually said, it's hard to believe, I said that internet thing will never take off because the user interface was poor. And it's true, but I didn't envision someone creating the browser. The browser became the interface to the internet, and then it took off like crazy. So back to our point about AI, it may be that they need to get the browser concept, get their interface even better.
Well, that's what's happening in real time.
Exactly.
I don't want to misquote Bill Gates, but I didn't hear him say it, but I read an article that he says there's been two major moments in his life from a technology standpoint. One was the first time he saw the GUI, the graphic. I think he was at Xerox and he saw pictures instead of code, and the second is this ChatGPT, the exposure of AI and the power of it. So let's pay attention to that. Yeah. Okay, and let's give the users just some how-tos. People like how-tos. So you have been optimizing websites for decades, and you've been optimizing them at the highest level. And I know that for a fact because I know a lot of the properties that you've had your hands on. And they compete in a very, very difficult, competitive environment. And you have proven years over years over years that the properties that you manage are always vying for those top positions.
Well, thank you.
Well, it's true. And a lot of it's in e-com. And some of it isn't, but a lot of it, I think your last, at least 5-10 years have been very e-com driven.
Oh, yes.
So what are some of let's say I'm selling something e-commerce on my website and it's a bit of a crowded area. How do I get my SEO on the top? I know I can do AdWords. I know that. I know I can do product listing ads. Yeah. I know I can pay for it, which I'm good for paying for it because I have a model that, but boy, would I like some free traffic.
Yes.
Or free traffic. I would like, what are some of the, give me some of your top 3-4 things that you look at. Are you allowed to tell us that?
Sure.
Just say yes.
Sure.
Okay,
I wasn't even going to question it because I'm trying to pay it forward.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But briefly back to what you said about PPC. I actually suggest people they have to fake it till they make it. I mean, it is good to start because you can't just hit the ground running at the top results. You got to work for it. And you sound like most customers. Like, how do I get there? And I say, you got a couple weeks to talk about it? But I'll try to summarize it. You first have to know what you're doing, obviously. And I have mentored people on SEO before, and it's a great way to learn how I learned and realize that it's an evolution. It's a constantly growing experience for yourself with knowledge. And, Google never always changes, always changes. But some things never change. And what I like about Google these days is them explain that to people. Hey, make a good website for people. That is really the goal. And if you do that, you will do the right things if you have their best interests at heart. Use easy to understand language. Explain things well. Use proper grammar. It's what you would do for communication. So communicate your products, your services properly. Explain the differences, and that's an interesting tip for people. Differentiation. The differentiation of a product to yourself. Sometimes you have products that are so similar that they may even have the same product names unless you dig deeper. And that's a bad thing, because not only for Google, but for your customers. If they have 10 products with the same name, how do they know which ones to pick? And in fact, if a customer runs across that, they might just give up and leave and say, they didn't even tell me what the differences are, right? So yes, explain your products and services in detail. Explain what the differences are. The internet is truly just an extension of a good salesperson. You're trying to understand what they need, what they're looking for, and give them a solution. And you have to explain it, what the features and benefits are. Yeah, but you just have to do it in the best way possible.
Yeah. So we have these 20 golden rules that we've published, and one of the golden rules, I can't remember which one it is, but if you Google golden rule, build your website for humans and robots. That's one of our golden rules.
Yes.
I think I would like you to interpret that for me, so people don't have to read the white paper.
Well, that is truly what I say. And I was kind of saying there, you build it for the humans because ultimately you got to sell something. You could drive traffic, but if nobody buys, it was a waste of time. So yes, for humans and for robots. So what's great is Google has gotten better at understanding the way we communicate with each other. And so that is why they're really pushing build your website for people, because they're looking at it as a person would nowadays. So yes, do that. But when you talk about building it for robots, there are some technical things you have to stick with. Make your site crawlable. It has to be able to be read to be understood, be indexed, right? So yes, there are some technical things which would be a couple sessions on itself. But yes, make sure you follow the technical requirements, and Google spells them out. And I don't want to just say Google all the time, but Bing as well. Yeah. I don't want to lose sight of Bing, but most people just say Google as search engines.
Sure.
Like Xerox for copiers, Kleenex. Yeah, exactly. So if I say Google, understand I'm not shooting down Bing, DuckDuckGo, any of those. They all have their place.
Yeah. So some of these things that maybe a human can't see.
Exactly.
Okay, tell me what those are.
So the infrastructure, the underneath of the HTML, the CSS, even these things like microdata and schema, which help Google understand relationships.
Okay, well, I was good with you on the HTML and the CSS, which is the markup language for websites. But then you went into schema and microdata, and I need you to slow down and explain that to me.
Well, schema has been around for quite a while. but it really wasn't coined as schema. One of the basic schemas that most people would see all the time in e-commerce websites are breadcrumbs, for example. It's a type of schema. There's actually a whole organization, schema.org, that helps to get out the information about what schemas are. Oh,
got it. Okay, I hate to do this to you. Breadcrumbs?
Breadcrumbs.
Okay, come on.
So the breadcrumbs, yeah, sorry, I should have said what they were. If you look on a website and you see typically near the top of the page, usually in a smaller font, so it's not totally distracting, but it's still there, you can read it. It shows a pathway that you follow. Basically, the concept of breadcrumbs, like when you go somewhere you've never been before, the old school idea of bringing with you some bread and dropping breadcrumbs behind you to find your way back. That is the breadcrumb concept.
Okay, I want to just take, that's a simple concept. I love the breadcrumbs, which is an industry word for SEO. But really what you've done there is, while that is visible to the human user, it really is, but it's under the main part of, let's say, a product page, which is you're looking at this product. But if you look on the top, you're like, oh, I understand this product more just by how I got here, by subcategory, category, larger, home, and that helps me as a user get an idea that maybe there's more options one back.
True.
Right? And while that's nice for the user to see those breadcrumbs, it is just really important also, the schema for Google to put in its engine indexing you correctly because it knows the schema of your website.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it comes back to relationships again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if, let's say at the end of this breadcrumb is the product you're looking for, you've got a trail of breadcrumbs that shows how you got there and which will let Google know how you got there or anyone gets there. And it could figure out the relationships from page to page to page in your journey and help it understand better how to represent you in its listings.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay. A couple more things that humans can't see, if you could help me. Title tags, description tags, H1 tags, XML sitemaps. Maybe take a swipe at some of those.
Okay. The interesting evolution of Google is some of these things aren't as critical as they used to be back in the old days. Mm-hmm. So as Google's gotten better at understanding, it's actually telling you or hinting to you that some of these are not as important or not even necessary. For example, the meta tag for keywords back in the old days was very critical for Google to pick up what a page was about. Nowadays, roll forward decades, it doesn't even, Google actually admits they don't even use it anymore.
They skip it.
Yeah. And in fact, I would say, kind of a pro tip, don't even take a chance on using them now. Because if you put incorrect keywords, you could get penalized. But by not including it, you wouldn't get penalized. So unless you're really good with keywords, which I was back in the day because it's part of the whole process. If you're not very good at it, I would recommend you just leave them off. Yeah. Because they could be considered keyword stuffing if you did them incorrectly or misleading. Putting keywords on there that don't even refer to anything on your page could be a negative thing. Yeah.
What used to be critical is now actually dangerous.
It could be dangerous, yeah. So I would say the experts, feel free to leave them there if you did a good job.
Okay.
But I'd say if your website did a poor job with keywords, remove those.
Are you trying to trick them?
You could
like
be trying
a black hat.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And I've always been white hat, not even gray hat. So when I talked about, I said that in the beginning, white text on white background. I wasn't saying I did it, but some people did to game the system. Nowadays, don't do stuff like that. You would get penalized and blacklisted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, keywords.
If I ever did it, I'm sorry, but I did it as an experiment.
There you go. It's official.
Yeah. What about titles and H1s?
Titles and H1s. I was just reading about H1s. See what Google's recent spin is on that.
Because you have to stay up with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
H1s aren't even that critical anymore.
Is that right?
Yeah. I was kind of shocked because I dug deep. I spent a lot of time on it because I was giving some advice to someone. I want to make sure it's great advice. It's not necessarily required, but I think I would still use them at this point in case Google was confused.
Well, it helps us with the schema.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it's part of, just the bones of a well-designed website.
Exactly.
And we won't, anybody watching this, just another pro tip. If you're watching this and you're like, well, Jason, ask them what an H1 is. I'm not going to, because you can Google what's an H1 tag,
Yeah.
right? So we don't need to get into things that you can easily, these are more color commentary and strategy session than it is a classroom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But we could say it's header.
Yeah, sure.
We'll say that much.
Yeah, sure.
Wow.
And you only get one.
Yeah, you're only supposed to have one.
Only supposed to have
There's
one.
a whole nother SEO audit that sometimes you find out people put multiple.
Yeah, well, a lot of
ones.
it. You have 6 most important points. Congratulations. Right? How are you going to do that? That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. How about? I can't not ask you about inbound links. Can I ask you about
Inbound links.
links?
Think about this. What was the internet? Hypertext markup language, HTML. That's what it stands for. A lot of people don't even know that because people don't mention it. What is the internet? It's content and links. That's all it is. I mean, basically, if you do not link to something, it stops. Nothing goes forward, right? So it is about links. So people find you through links, whether you see the link yourself, someone sends you the link, or someone provides the link in some other format. But that is the way the internet works. Sorry to say, it still is, right?
Or a QR code is a link.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
So back in the old days, again, quantity was more important than quality of inbound links. Nowadays, it's more quality than quantity. You definitely want the links to be from a quality website and related, at least the page it's coming from, to wherever it's landing. Again, relationships. It's back to relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And what you mean by quality links, because there are these, as we call them, leak farms.
Yes.
Right. Which are just another deterrent, right? Another gotcha that could really hurt you.
They could.
If you know anything about the disavow tool, you will know that these link farms have caused a lot of carnage around the way, right? But really high quality inbound links are still good, particularly I think if you use, or if you get the person linking to you, if they're nice enough to use some good anchor text.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you're working to develop these backlinks, and you can talk to the people that own the website that link to you, sometimes they'll change the words to help you out. Like if they didn't choose wisely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's always good because it's a good thing for a user. I mean, if you see it highlighted in blue and it's really vague, that doesn't help anybody. You want it to be specific.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. How about spying on your neighbors and competitors? And a lot of SEO is about seeing who's doing well and working backwards from that. Is that true?
Well, I would say a lot of people and companies put too much emphasis on competitors. Because first, get your own house in order, right? Like, if you are not doing a good job to begin with, who's to say that getting ideas from your competitors makes sense? Do what I always believe with SEO, and it seems more than ever, because Google is using more and more ranking factors, right? Even though they don't come out and tell you what they are or the number, the understanding is there's hundreds of ranking factors. And why is that? Because you need lots of factors to determine if someone did a good job, right? Did they, are they spelling words correctly? Are they using correct grammar? Are they, capitalizing words properly? Blah, 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 blah. All those things. You got to have that in order first before you check on your competitors. So what I try to tell people is, first, do all the right things well consistently. Then, once you're on that track, then use your competition to learn what maybe they're doing that you don't know about. If you just copy your competitors, there's the good chance that you won't do as well as they will for several reasons. Maybe they're looked at as a higher authority by search engines. And so you can never be as good as them copying them. You have to do better than them unless your authority goes up. So don't just copy them, but learn from them in case they're doing something that you're not, that you deem as worthy. Yeah.
Great. So I got to come back. Schema, thank you. But then you said
Microdata?
Yeah, come on.
Okay.
I thought you're getting off the hook on that.
No.
I want to know what that is.
In fact, I do want to talk about that. And it's not just me. I mean, if you look on the Search Central, the Google developer sites, all those things, they will mention microdata. And again, this is the amazing thing about this day and age of Google. They are actually communicating with the SEO industry, the SEO people, more than ever, and working together. Back in the old days, it was almost like us against them. But now they're communicating and saying what's needed, what they would like, what they prefer. And microdata, again, is a way to communicate to Google on page and off page, because your microdata is in the code of the pages, but it needs to be reflected on your page. Otherwise, you're just making up stuff that doesn't apply, back to doing something bad. So it's a way of highlighting important parts of your page and developing relationships. Yeah.
Great. All right, so let's get into AI. This is not the end. It's another inflection point, though. Right?
It is.
I mean, do you believe in deja vu, Ken? Do you have any deja vu moments?
Yes, I've had deja vu. Yes, I've had deja vu. Did you just have deja vu? Yeah. It's the same thing all over again, right? You need to do things differently. You can't have deja vu with SEO.
Right.
You don't want it. Unfortunately, duplicate content, back from the old days, duplicate content would get you penalized, and then eventually Google didn't like saying penalized. But it's like, why would Google list you if you have the same things over and over on your website, right? So what Google did on their own is, well, they're not going to penalize you totally. They're going to find one instance of that duplication and list it. But basically, they are penalizing all those other pages that don't get indexed, right? So they do penalize you even though they don't want to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Crazier
They don't say that. They're from Northern California, so they can't say they penalize anyone. But they will say they're not going to give you favor.
There you go.
Right?
Exactly.
They'll say that. Yeah.
Exactly. But it's even crazier now since Google's gotten better at understanding relationships and content and storing more data and all that. And I've experienced this myself. I've actually got hurt not by duplicate content, because I always made sure not to have duplicate content, but similar content. Yeah. So Google came out with this algorithm change that they actually said they were going to start looking for similar content and maybe not listing similar content. And that makes sense, right? If it doesn't have to be duplicate to be the same thing, because people were spinning the words and saying the same thing, and it wasn't providing value.
Well, and here's the danger of AI, right? Because
Exactly.
really what AI is doing is spinning the same words over and over and over again quickly.
It is.
Quickly.
Yeah, because it is not a human brain, right? It is not generating original thought. It is sampling. It is learning from others. And of course, the AI that's tapped into the internet has a lot to learn. But unfortunately, it's learning incorrectly sometimes as well. Because if you've got incorrect information as well as good information, it's learning that it has to sort the good from the bad, and it's not an expert at anything.
You said that. I was going to say you still need an expert in the room.
Yeah. So I'd say I consider AI a jack of all trades, master of none. It's not my saying. It's the old saying, right?
Right?
Yeah, because it's not a human. Humans don't know what they don't know. It takes an expert to know. And actually, I consider an expert someone that knows what they don't know, right? Someone that gets asked a question, like if you were to ask me a question and I don't know the answer, I will say I don't know. Some people don't, like AI, unfortunately. There's been this talk of delusions, AI delusions, right? That AI, just like Google sometimes, always has to give you an answer. But if it doesn't know the correct one, it's making it up. I mean, I haven't read much about that, but I've heard that.
Well, I think you're right. I've tested some AI queries with like emotional questions, like how do I make my wife love me more? Right, and it comes back, I do not know. I don't know what it would say today, but for something that's quantitative, it's always going to give me an answer.
Yeah,
Regardless if it's right, wrong, or indifferent. And it's just a sample set of everything that's out there.
exactly.
So you need an expert in the room.
Yeah, and because it's sampling large amounts of data, it's generalizing. Whenever I played with AI, I got fluffy generalizations.
Yeah.
And in fact, there was this CNN 60 Minutes, one of these specials that actually was talking about AI, and they actually asked teachers, they said, you must be really worried that the kids are using AI to do their homework and how hard it is to spot. And this teacher said, oh no, it's not hard to spot. If it's really, her term was bland. If it's really bland, fluffy generalizations, vagueness, if there's too much of that, it may be AI.
Yep. All right. Well, we're running out of time.
Oh,
I know. It's a great conversation. I know you're a fan of film, sci-fi, and you had this analogy. I want you to just tell the group about this, Skynet in the Terminator.
Yes.
Give us, let's close that with that story.
especially for the younger viewers and listeners. Skynet is a reference from the Terminator movie or Terminator series of movies. And it was AI. It was AI that, like a lot of businesses may, until they learn more about it, might just assume it's the answer to everything. So they started using AI everywhere and putting it in both private and public and government systems. And this AI basically learned that humans were not needed. They're inefficient. They're an enemy to them. So the AI actually created AI factories that created AI robots and machines and vehicles. And it went out to exterminate the humans. Yeah. So there's the background. But they sent this Terminator robot back in time in this movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger, which was awesome. And his job was to kill this one lady. And it turns out the lady was the mother to the son that was the AI resistance. And they thought, smart, if we get rid of the mom, the son will never be born. And but of course that fell through. And because we're smarter than AI, which we always need to be. And so basically it fell through. And I'm thinking that if AI is watching this in the future, Jason, they would have sent the robot here, and Arnold robot would have said, and I can't do a great Arnold impression, but I'm looking for Ken Vitto, meaning he would come to destroy me if he thought that I was anti-AI. Luckily, didn't kill us. We're not anti-AI, right? We believe it's a tool, and it's still early.
All right. Well, what if somebody else heard you say, I'm looking for Ken Vitto? How do they find you?
Well, luckily, I made myself findable. LinkedIn is probably the best way. I am probably the only Ken Vitto that does SEO. Not saying that there may not be others, but that would be easy.
Yeah, we'll put that in the notes. Ken
Thank
Vitto.
you.
Ken Vitto, SEO expert. You'll probably come up.
Yeah, and in fact, my URL says something about search engine optimization in the URL. Who would have guessed? I optimized my LinkedIn.
Well, your time spent with me was very valuable to me.
Well, I appreciate you having me.
I took a lot of notes.
Well, thank you. That's an honor.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the show. We'll talk to you very soon. All right.
Thanks, Jason.
Great job, Ken. Yeah.